one point, I thought I was in charge of this meeting. No, 6 o'clock. I can't start early. That's illegal. All right. Call this meeting to order officially, 6:01 p.m., Monday, June 8th, 2020. The Common Council meeting, the agenda's been posted, the meeting's been notified. Val, please call roll.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Nikolowski.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Holt.
Here.
Daniel.
Here.
Rossing.
Here.
Mayor Frederickson.
Here. All righty, please stand. First up on our order of business is public comments, but at this time I'm going to ask that we have a moment of silence to honor former District 1 alderperson and council president George Kirby. He passed, and we would like to honor him with a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you, George. Any communications that were received by the alderpersons from their constituents? None at this, okay.
I have one. I have,
The mic?
oh, sorry. This is from a constituent, D. Greats, Edgewater, MHP. They wrote, Tom, I would like to express my support for the continued live streaming of the Rhinelander City Council meetings. Since the live streaming began, I have watched all the meetings either live or later when I am not able to make the Monday evening meeting prior to live streaming. I never attended council meetings. I feel it is very valuable to see and hear the meetings firsthand rather than read what a local reporter's interpretation. What a great tool for citizen participation. Please support ongoing live streaming of city council meetings. Thank you.
Anybody else? Just for a moment of clarity on this issue, we would look to book the auditorium at the high school to open up the meeting completely as the way we used to do it. We were not able to do so. So the extension we made during this time of COVID was our department heads being accessible to the council members as far as work product that's coming forward that way. That being the case, they are allowed to come in to publicly speak and speak at the mic and then leave, and or once again send emails to their alderpersons, and they'll be read out. Okay? It was a little confusing this time, I know, because we were looking to open it up to the public with a bigger venue, but wasn't possible. So this is the direction. All right. Mayor's comments. Upcoming work sessions. What I wanted to explain to you today was, as we were working through some of our work product, was some of the expectations of what those work sessions are going to look like. They're basically 2-3 hour evenings with basically what you're going to hear is the state of the city address somewhat from our department heads, from our needs and wants, so that we can work through a worksheet to prioritize and figure out how to set policy forth to put our city in position to take care of these needs so that you can hear them firsthand. We found out that as you go through, is this rattling on there too?
Yes.
Is that better? Yeah, okay, good. It's bothering me. But how we take and make it policy to make it happen, not make the decisions happen reactionary as they come to us, but how do we set policy forth with the things that are in front of us for the next 6 months, the year, and then moving forward also. The best way to do that is to put it in front of you, all of it, so you're not making a decision based on an emotional plea or something that comes before you at any period of time. You can say this is truly what's best for our city. What do we want to see moving forward? So when you come those nights, we'll probably have packets ready for you by Monday that they'll get sent out with just a ton of the stuff from the department heads and some of the other issues that are coming. And then just be here with your thinking caps on and absorb and ask questions as they come. We might not be able to answer those questions, but the department heads are invited to come with their packet in the slots that we provide them. And then be thinking about it from a policy perspective. How do we set policy that makes this happen? How do we prioritize and get these things done with people in hand, administrators, department heads, lawyers? They know what work product they're supposed to work on to get through to the next period, what the expectations are. So that's the idea of the work sessions, and that's the end of my comments. Reports from departments. Clerk's department, do you have anything to add?
My mic isn't working, but no, I don't have anything to add.
That way it's on TV. Or
I don't have anything to add at this time. Thank you.
thank you. EMS and, Gerald?
Well, I just wondered on the item about the elections, is the high school available for the August election?
I am waiting for an answer back on that to see if it is available. We are really having some difficulty with COVID trying to get our normal spots. I have been told by the County Buildings and Grounds Department that the ADRC, the senior center, is not available for the rest of the year. I was unaware of that because I had spoken with the person in charge over there and they had told me that the senior center was going to be available. It is obviously not. So I need to find something for November. And I know that the schools will probably not be available at that time because the children will be back in session. So yes, I don't have something for November. I am waiting for an answer for August.
For concerned citizens who might be watching, we are looking for large venues, i.e. churches or other areas that would volunteer their space. So EMS and fire? The only thing I'll add is that I'll have you step up to the mic because it's on live stream also. Sorry.
The only thing I'll add is after doing a report today for Zach, I found out that over the months of March, April, and May, we're down about $30,000 in revenue in the ambulance service directly related to COVID. And the reason we found this out is because there's actually a grant out there that we can apply to help reimburse us for those losses.
Thank you. Any questions for Terry? As long as he's up there? All right. Thank you. Engineering and special projects. Mark? Nothing to add? Thank you. Finance department? Thank you. Fleet division is not here. Golf course? Not here. Inspection, did you want to add what work you did at the golf course, Tara? Or not at this point? Okay. Thank you. I know it's their report, but inspections?
Nothing to add.
Legal?
Yeah, I'll give them I've got my mic, it works. Once again, I keep promising you that I'm going to give you a written report, and I keep getting so busy with stuff that I never get it done, even though I get here at 8 o'clock in the morning trying to think I'll get it done. A little bit closer, okay. The attorney's report. What we're continuing to do is continuing to assist with operational and contract issues that we have with the city. We've had several developmental meetings talking about property development, also development of different issues that have arisen with regard to zoning and some zoning issues. We had a review of some of the language of the zoning code in light of the changes that are going to be made, and we're going to be continuing that process. We worked on a land donation, which we talked about at the last meeting, that we're following up on that, and we've completed that process. That should be done by this time next month. We also looked at the open records request. We finally completed the review of the 4,000 pages of materials, and that should be complete this week. As you'll see in the materials this evening, we drafted several ordinances for your consideration. We're also working on the terms of the union contract with the police department. We've worked with the order to raise a couple properties in the city. We're talking about some of the complications with that and working with Habitat for Humanity on at least one of the property. We're going to talk about the claims that were filed against the city. That was part of the process to evaluate those claims. We've been working with the agenda, some of the meeting questions. I've contributed to the planning workshop that will be held next week, and been answering constituent questions and some of the issues with traffic and court issues, and having completed the last one of those questions while I missed the tree ceremony. I was on the phone, so I apologize for that, but that's my report.
Thank you. Museum complex. Terry.
Hello, everybody. For those that don't know, I think I know just about everybody here. My name is Kerry Bladorn. I'm the director at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex. It's a privilege to be so just want to offer up thank you to the City of Rhinelander for giving me that honor to do that. Also, I'd like to say welcome to the new council members, and also thank you to all the council members for all you do in support and in service to this community. It's very important. I also want to add a very, very special thank you to Val, Mary, Beth, Wendy, and Jeremy. Between the people here at City Hall and the Parks Department, they do so much for the museum complex, and I am very appreciative for the work they do. These are like platinum people, and the city's very lucky to have them working on a myriad of issues. After a lot of discussion early this spring, we did decide to open the museum for the summer. We have taken a number of precautions down at the complex with everybody's health and safety in mind. Have had the Oneida County Health Department down for a walkthrough, and there wasn't a whole lot for suggestions that they could make of precautions that we were already taking. So I was really pleased to hear that from them. I think given the circumstances and taking into consideration the serious nature of the COVID pandemic that we've all been dealing with, I thought it was very important that we take measures to keep everybody safe and healthy and comfortable as they visit the museum, but most importantly, it's important that the complex be open this summer to allow people to have something to do within our community, and also visitors, to have visitors something to do. With a lot of events canceled, and for reasons that are wholly warranted, again, I think it's important to have something that's accessible and safe, and that people can enjoy to do within our community. And the Pioneer Park Historical Complex is truly a gem, and not just within Rhinelander, but within the county, within the region, within the state, within the Midwest. And happy to say that we were able to open this summer. Last year, it was kind of a struggle to get people to work at the museum, and I'm very happy to say that this year it was much, much easier. And this council last fall was able to secure a small wage increase for our staff members, and even though it doesn't seem like a lot, to our staff that works very hard and to people that would like to work at the museum, it meant a lot to them. So I'd just like to say thank you for that. I also brought in our brand spanking new self-guided walking tour brochure, which I gave everybody a copy of. And this was a project that was put together by the Oneida County Leadership Class of 2020, which I was a part of. And even though we didn't get to finish our class, still kind of working on talking about going back to complete that. The group that I was working with worked very hard in completing this before the museum would open. And it's chock full of wonderful information, and it makes visiting the complex a lot easier and nicer for people that come in. So you guys can take that home and take a look at it, and it also highlights, you know, all of the wonderful museums down at the complex. And I think I've covered all the things that I wanted to mention. So if you don't have any other questions,
I have a question.
sure.
You had a volunteer day a while back. Do you plan on doing any more of that this summer or fall for people to come? I know it was with the train and the painting. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're always open to having volunteers come down. And we do have a number of people that stop in throughout the season and offer up, you know, volunteer hours to do any number of projects, of which there are a million down at the complex. With any historic piece of equipment or artifact or building, it just by necessity, you know, requires continuous restoration and maintenance. And so we kind of have a standing opportunity for anybody to come down. So far as the train is concerned, this last several years, I should start by saying, there's a lot of things down at the complex that, you know, could use attention. And that's not for really lack of attention, it's just the nature of running a historic complex. And for my part, I've really put the train as a priority. And this last several years, we've been kind of, what you might say, nickel and diming the restoration. That's a artifact and a piece of equipment that we literally could throw $1 million at and it would suck it up, you know, in 10 seconds flat. Granted, we don't need the train to run, but we do like it to look nice, and we like to preserve it for future generations. That said, I was approached a while back about someone that wanted to donate a large sum of money in their will, potentially, and we're kind of navigating that process. Through conversations with Wendy and through some advice from Steve Sorensen, there was a recommendation to approach the Rhinelander Community Foundation to help facilitate some funding for larger projects like that. It's just one of those things that the city, it's a challenge for the city entity to facilitate some of those large donations, people that want to donate $10, $20, $30, $50,000 to. And so the Community Foundation is set up to be a conduit for that sort of funding and those donations. So we are currently exploring and having conversations with the Community Foundation to see if that's something that they would be able to do. And I'll keep you apprised of that as things move along. Another person had approached me about donating a large sum of money toward the train, and that was another reason that I wanted to talk to the foundation and see if that was something, you know, that they would be willing to help with. And so I have high hopes that if I'm able to get all the ducks in a row, so to speak, that we'll be able to stick a little more money into that piece of equipment and its historic restoration. Being visible from the road, it is, of course, very important piece at the complex. It draws people into the museum, into the park even. And so, again, I just wanted to make that a priority. These last several years, we've been doing all we can on it up to this point, and hoping that through the summer, we're able to really take a giant leap with that. So, hope that answers your question.
Tom?
Hi, Carrie. I was down there a few weeks ago. I'm sure you remember. We were just kind of getting the hand sanitizers out of the garage and stuff. And you had mentioned to me something about one of the buildings that you were looking to get help with. Can you tell us a little bit about that again?
Are you talking about the historic log building?
Yeah.
So this was something that I had brought up last season. Some of you may remember. There's a historic log cabin down on Highway G, and we were approached about potentially moving that to the complex. And I had really high hopes that they were going to be able to come up with the funding on their own. Given that there are so many projects and so much restoration work that could potentially be done at the complex, I felt it a disservice to the complex as a whole and what's existing now. I feel like those things need attention. And again, I feel like it would be a disservice if I took my time to help fundraise for a new complex building. That said, through conversations with these people that had approached me about moving that building, I had really high hopes that they were going to come up with the number that they needed to kind of move that forward. Unfortunately, that number fell a little short, and so it kind of more or less got put on the back burner. If I could tie that in with conversations with the Community Foundation, it's my hope that if, in fact, we are able to work with the foundation, that we can facilitate a number of projects moving into the future. So we wouldn't be able to just do one thing like work on the train, but you know, they could facilitate large donations toward any number of projects. And that is still one that I would really like to see come to fruition. So just a matter of kind of prioritizing what can be done, seeing where the funding resources lie and people's willingness to donate to certain aspects of the complex. And so that is still something that could potentially happen. As it stands right now, it's not a prioritized focus.
Thank you.
If I might, Mr. Rossing had asked me earlier before the meeting gets started, why don't we have a sign up on the highway to kind of direct people to the park, to the complex? And that's something I've thought very hard about these last several years. And I've done a little bit of scratching on that, and I will take it upon myself to dig a little deeper and harder on that and see what we can come up with. We have updated a lot of signage at the complex this last couple of years, so it seems, you know, to follow suit that we would, you know, work on trying to get some signage up on the highways to direct people to this wonderful gem that the complex is.
Thank you.
One last thing, I'm anticipating with everything going on, and of course we're not alone in this, businesses and entities across the country are dealing with this. You know, I have concerns that the COVID pandemic is going to affect the museum's visitation and in turn the donations that we get on a day-to-day basis. I have noticed, just being open this one single week, that visitation by locals is down, but our visitation by visitors to the community is about the same. And I'm very surprised to note and happy to note that our gift shop sales and our donations, if the single week being open, it can be any barometer for how the summer is going, has been relatively good. And I was really happy to see that. Nevertheless, I do want to, you know, prepare this council, prepare myself, prepare our staff to kind of move forward with this, and in anticipation that this summer is not going to be a giant boom like previous years. Things have kind of been getting progressively better. Donations have gone up, gift shop sales have gone up, et cetera, and this coronavirus pandemic is really a hurdle that we have to jump. But we are doing everything we can to, again, make people feel safe and comfortable coming to the museum, and also doing the best we can at promoting the museum and getting people to come in the first place. So, see how it goes.
Thank you. All right. Parks, buildings, and grounds. Can I ask you to stand up and explain the planting of the trees, though, just for the heck of it, since we celebrated Arbor Day today? The 20 that you planted?
So in addition to the tree we planted outside of City Hall, the Parks Department we bought last fall, winter, we bought 20 balled and burlap trees. They're roughly about between 15 and 18 feet tall to spread around the cemetery and the parks. So we planted 3 at the cemetery, 2 at Pioneer Park, 4 at Pelican Rapids Boat Landing, and the rest at West Side Park in the field area behind the BMX track and the baseball diamond there. So every year I'd like to kind of keep this up and keep this in my budget. And it took a lot more work than I thought. They're big trees, but when you put them in the ground, they sure don't look as big as they are on the trailer. So it's really a positive. We'll have less nuisance animals and kids coming breaking the branches off and stuff if we keep them nice and big trees. So they look really nice, and I encourage you to stop by one of those areas and check out the new trees. They're pretty cool. It's neat to see new trees go up in town.
Yeah, thank you. Police?
Good evening. I just want to mention a couple things out of my report. First of all, we did have a protest Monday, June 1st that started on the courthouse lawn, and then there was a march to the front of the police department and back.
A little closer to the mic, just.
So the event was extremely well received. I had a chance to talk with some of those involved after the event. I was very proud of our community to have an event like that where it went off so well, and people had the opportunity to voice their First Amendment right, which I fully support. And we can talk more about that later in the agenda, on that agenda item. The second thing I wanted to point out is that Officer Mark Nyland graduated from a recruit academy at Northeast Technical College in Green Bay. That's a process where we, several years ago, I asked the council for permission to hire somebody who was not certified, meaning they hadn't been themselves through the 720-hour academy. So, but they had to take the right candidate to do that because there is a financial risk. They did have to enter into agreement that if they failed, they would have to pay everything back. If they pass, the state of Wisconsin Training and Standards pays for the fee of the course, the motel, mileage, and meals. So we were pretty excited about hiring Mark, and he didn't let us down. As from those of us like myself who've been through Recruit Academy, they're very competitive. It's a long 720 hours, minus COVID of being yanked back home, have to do online training, and then the delay, and he finished first in his class. And that was remarkable, and I'm very proud of him. So
I'm gonna. Any questions for Chief as he's leaving? I'm just kidding. Streets Division, Dan? Okay. Technology Division. Actually, I like the fact that our department heads have exposure to our council members now. We have 3-hour department head meetings where we discuss stuff, and there's a whole lot of work that goes on, and I prefer that they champion their cause and kind of.
So, I think it was early last week.
A little closer to the mic, though.
Early last week, I got a desperate email from Kyle at the golf course that they were having problems out there. Originally, when I started this project a year ago and was asked to research the departments, the golf course was not included in my assignment. So it was the first time I had been out at their facility. Small story short, it's kind of a nightmare out there. Their server is, well, when I called HP after about an hour on the phone, we think it was purchased about 2010, 2011. The monitor is the old box style monitor I can't read. Cables are not labeled correctly coming into the patch panel, going to the switch. He's fluctuating up and down. He's got a access point in there that showed up in the server room, but there's concrete walls and concrete ceiling in there, so it's not reaching upstairs. They did invest in some new iPads and a couple new computers downstairs and some credit card machines to operate the pro shop and the restaurant. They're fluctuating up and down with signal. I did make some DNS changes. He seems to be a little more stable there. I think the equipment was installed in January and then COVID hit, it wasn't used. And so I have some concerns that maybe the equipment didn't work in the first place. Like I'm pretty sure one of the credit card machines is not working at all. There's Ethernet ports upstairs that don't have the right numbers labeled. We can't track them into the panel. So we're doing the best we can, but they're pretty much functioning day by day. He seems to be pretty stable, and then he called last week and needed a new computer for his office. I was able to find one here at City Hall that had been set aside for somebody to take home during working home at COVID, so I brought that out to him, and I haven't heard from him so far, but I taught him how to check lights on the patch panel and to see if he had connection, and he seemed pretty sleep, but nobody has been on site for over 3 years with the vendor that used to take care of the facility, so.
How many servers do we have for the city?
I would say close to 7 or 8, and they're
7 or
all
8.
getting,
I guess
were
even the,
expired, their life is getting expired,
Yeah.
so.
even as I asked you to stand up, I did get an email from him, and he said life got a whole lot easier after one day with our IT person. So that was basically workflow happening through the day, and half the time I don't even have time to congratulate you till now or say, thank you or whatever else. But as I received just a ton of emails or whatever, as I page through them, and I'm reading them as much as I can, as closely as I can, that was one of them, was one day with IT, and it's improved their workflow and the product out there. So that was part of it. I wanted to thank you. Any questions for Tara? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Water Division.
I do not have anything to add to my report unless anyone's got a question on it. I just wanted to send some informational stuff out.
Gerald.
I noted you had something about abandoning an old lead pipe, and I wondered how many lead pipes do we still have in the system, or roughly?
That's a good question. I wish I knew. All the lead services I've found over the last probably 4 or 5 years have been abandoned services. Rarely any of them are actually still in use. And typically they're on abandoned properties, and we don't find them until a leak develops and we have to go dig it. Anything else? I just wanted to, this morning in a meeting, Jim had brought up a point that well 5 was having some issues keeping up with demand. So summer months are obviously heavy water demand, and winter months, fortunately this year we didn't have to have a run water notice, so we got away pretty well this winter without having issues. But in the near future, you'll be seeing some information on water conservation coming out, and we'll try and get that out to the residents and all of you. And Tom, like you mentioned, your constituents are listening to these, so I thought this was a good forum for this.
Thank you. So for the general public, watch for the water conservation flyers and suggestions coming out for the summer. Wastewater. Jim?
I really don't have much additional to add, but I would be open for any questions, and I would also like to invite any of the older people, new or old, to come on out to the treatment plant for a tour at your convenience. Any questions with the wastewater end of things?
Tom?
In under identified needs, you're talking about 2 trucks for the Public Works Department. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you need for that?
Sure. The newest pickup that we have is a 2007, and the rest of the fleet dates back to 2002. And the fleet that we do have is, it's pretty beat up. They get used every day. They get used for snow plowing. I would hope in the future we don't have to come to council for multiple trucks at one time. That in the future we can stay ahead of this with a plan in place to replace vehicles more frequently. And currently we're so short of vehicles, we have a borrowed pickup from the street department. So that puts their staff down a vehicle as well.
Are you actively searching out bids?
Tom had reached out for bids here recently.
Yeah.
And he's been heading up the truck purchases.
Two of those trucks, of the four I brought to you, were for wastewater.
Oh, they
Yeah.
were for wastewater, okay.
Correct.
All right.
Clear up any confusion, yeah, they were on that bid. All right. Eileen?
None of the reports that I saw mentioned well testing. Is the well testing still going on?
Yep.
That's an upcoming agenda question, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still going on monthly.
Okay.
Because we've taken the 2 wells offline that were contributing the contaminants, we were going to discuss testing less frequently because the other 3 wells have very low levels of these contaminants in them. In fact, less than 5 parts per trillion. And testing gets pretty pricey. If we're just talking well testing, it's about $1,200 a month. If we're talking well testing plus distribution system, we're up around $2,000 a month. So even now, if we can stagger it out to every other month, over a year, it's a considerable savings.
Do you know, Chris, was the results of the past testing ever, I knew they were having trouble uploading it to the website. Did that get complete?
I believe so. I didn't confirm it by going to the website and checking. Mary was working on it, not Val,
Okay.
but I believe so.
Okay.
You know, she didn't report that they didn't get done. It was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll accept a motion to receive the reports.
Make a motion to receive the reports.
There's a motion, a second was by Eileen, motion was by Ryan. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Reports from boards, commissions, and committees. We did not get any written ones, and nobody's here for that. Meeting minutes. March 30th is page 26. April 2nd is page 30. April 21st is 33. April 21st, the organizational meeting is 37. And May 26th is page 29 in your packet, or 39, excuse me, in your packet. I will take these separately because if there's any discrepancies in them that anybody wants to address, we'll take them one at a time. So starting with A.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from March 30th as written.
Holt, second.
Vote with the second. There's a motion, a second. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. B, April 2nd, 2020.
I will make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 2nd, 2020 as written.
Larson, second.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? I'll pause for a minute, see if anybody has anything highlighted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. April 21st, 2020.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from April 21st, 2020 as written.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Tom, you kind of have your hand up half there. Just breaking the silence. Gerald?
Which one are we on? I'm sorry.
April 21st.
It's
Yeah.
on page 33 in your
Okay, on
packet.
page 35, there's in capital
Okay.
letters, there's a thing about waiving fees and then address this for a long-term solution. Is that going to be in our planning session or on any agenda in the future?
Go ahead, point out where you're looking just so I can get to it
It's
quicker.
about a third of the way down the page, the motion by Holt, second by Larson, and then the second line of that paragraph.
Oh.
Council will address this for a long-term solution.
That was for snow plowing
Oh, yes, yes,
down
yes.
on
Waiving
Lincoln
fees.
Street.
Yeah, one, we'll see what Dan puts in his packet for long-term and short-term, because we're looking at the policies. But yes, that would be a good idea or a good suggestion as far as moving that stuff to that point, so we can get to a policy that we all accept. It's in the packet under waiving the fees for the snow removal from sidewalks. And it had to do with a long-term solution. We have not done the snow plowing, we'll call it powwow, that we said we were going to do to address that yet. No, that has not been done yet, but. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. The organizational meeting, April 21st, 2020, page 37 in your packet.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 21, 2020 on the organizational meeting as written.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. May 26, 2020, page 39 in your packet.
I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 26, 2020 as written.
Barnett, second.
Barnett, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. And I'd like to take this moment to thank Val for catching up and doing a ton of work on meeting minutes and everything else. It's been quite the election season and everything else for her, and this was even a good package of work. We appreciate it. Thank you, Val. Ordinances. We're looking at first readings. A, consider the first reading of ordinance 2020-04, amending chapter 4.03.025, endangering safety of animals. One of the things that came out is there was 2, 3, 4, I think it was a total of 4 ordinances that was brought up in the department head meetings that we've kind of been sitting on for a little bit of time or whatever, so we wanted to move it forward. And here's some examples of them. They were work product that was pushed through, not pushed through, but finished this week.
Is this the first reading of these?
Correct.
Okay.
You all, it's actually a consideration of the first reading. If you like the ordinance, then we can have it as the first reading, yes.
Gotcha. I had no problem.
You make a motion that this be the first reading.
I'll make a motion that this is the first reading of ordinance 2020-4, endangering safety of animals, revision of ordinance number 4.03.025, and creation of ordinance number 4.03025.1.
That being the case, and seeing as how we are on live stream, now I will read that ordinance, so it is the first reading. Thank you. Whereas the city of...
I will second it. Hold.
I'm sorry.
There needs to be a second.
Yes. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this ordinance before I read it?
Before you read it?
We're going to pass it before, that it be considered to be first read. So, you have a question?
I had a question about the fourth whereas
Okay.
paragraph. There seems to be at least one word missing from the first line there, or the way I'm reading it. And I guess my other question about it is that the 70 degrees for 20 minutes, 80 degrees for 10 minutes, is that just, I guess that's just information. It's not trying to set a standard of any sort, because the ordinance itself is
comes from the state.
is more vague.
Those temperatures and those times came from the state of Wisconsin, and that's where the basis of that information came from in the whereas clauses, because the state has established that as the basis for the Wisconsin statute. And what you're effectively doing, what you've already done, is you've already adopted the state statute. This is just clarifying the state statute and giving you more breadth in enforcement.
Eileen?
I can see where he's saying it looks like there's a phrase or a word missing in where it says, it has been determined that cruelty to animals, the confinement of an animal. So there probably should be something in there that says cruelty to animals is defined as the confinement of an animal, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's got a quotation mark at the beginning, but none at the end, so we don't know where it's quoted from either.
Okay. So we'll...
Those will be corrected when we bring it back to you for final approval. That's what the
Thank
purpose
you.
of the first reading
Yep.
is. And
Tom?
there also has to be a public hearing on all ordinances at the next meeting, if you move them to the next meeting.
So I apologize if I apologize.
Wow. It's your beer.
All right. I apologize if I'm misunderstanding.
It's you.
Magnetic personnel.
It's a metal plate in my head. Hello? I apologize if if I'm misunderstanding at the end here. But I don't see anywhere where it says what the, like a fine would be or anything like that. Like what is the end result in that? Or am I just misunderstanding what this is?
No, the statute itself, or the ordinance itself, if passed, refers to the provision within the statute that has the penalty provision already in it.
Oh.
So you'd have to read the ordinances of the city of Rhinelander, which has a penalty provision that's already in there for violation of these category of offenses.
Okay, so there's not a whole new fine or anything like that? We're not rewriting anything? Okay.
Right.
So, discussion was based on cleaning it up. Do we want to amend the first reading, or I'll just read it as it is, and we'll go from there with the second. All right, whereas the City Council of the City of Rhinelander has enacted an ordinance 4.03.025 pertaining to the adoption of the state laws constituting misdemeanor offense, and whereas the City Council of Rhinelander reserved the right to modify and amend the existing ordinance, and whereas the state of Wisconsin has enacted Wisconsin State Statute 951-02, mistreating animals, which provides that no person may treat any animal, whether belonging to the person or another, in a cruel manner. And whereas it has been determined that cruelty to animals in the confinement, or the confinement of, when that gets cleaned up, of an animal in a vehicle where the outside temperature is 70+ degrees for more than 20 minutes or 80+ degrees for more than 10 minutes. And whereas the City Council of Rhinelander has determined that it is in the best interests of the residents of the City of Rhinelander to create its own ordinance for the safety of these animals consistent with the intent of Wisconsin Statute 951.02. Now, therefore, the City Council does hereby create ordinance 4.03.025 to read as follows. Endangering safety of animals, Wisconsin Statute 951.02, and any successor statute is specifically herein adopted and made part of the Rhinelander City ordinances with the inclusion of the language that no person may treat any animal, whether belonging to that person or another, in a cruel manner. This shall specifically, but not exclusively, prohibit actions by a person who are in the care, custody, or the control of any animal from leaving or confining that animal in any unattended motor vehicle under conditions that endanger the health or the well-being of an animal due to heat, cold, lack of adequate ventilation, or lack of food or water, or other circumstances that could reasonably be expected to cause suffering, disability, or death to the animal. Gerald.
As I read this, we're not really revising 4.03.025 except to add to it this other section .1. Is that what the
That'd be
revision
correct.
amounts to then?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Next, consider the first reading of the ordinance 2020-05, amending chapter 3.06.12, parenthesis L, parenthesis, control of weeds and grasses. This is page 47 in your packet.
I will make a motion to have the first reading of the control of weeds and grass revision of ordinance number 3.06.12.
Rossing, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? I will read the city ordinance 2020-5, control of weeds and grasses, revision of the ordinance 3.06.12. Whereas the City Council of City of Rhinelander has enacted ordinance 3.06.12 pertaining to the control of weeds and grasses, and whereas the City Council of Rhinelander reserved the right to modify and amend their existing ordinances, and issues have arisen with permitted lengths of grass and weeds in the municipal involving moving can be ordered by the weed commissioner. And whereas the City Council of Rhinelander has determined that it is in the best interest of the residents of the City of Rhinelander to amend the existing ordinance to clarify the length in order to better protect the health and well-being of its residents. And now therefore, the City Council does hereby amend the ordinance 3.06.12, parenthesis, L, parenthesis, as follows. 1, mowing required. No person owning property within the city shall permit to grow or pollinate upon his premise any weeds or grasses which cause or produce hay fever in human beings, exhale unpleasant or noxious odors, or conceal filthy deposits. To prevent such growth and pollination, every property owner shall mow and cause to be mowed upon the premises all grasses and weeds that exceed 9 inches in height to include the front, back, and side yards. The weed commissioner shall enforce this section. 2, notice. Once it has been determined that the weed commissioner has that mowing is required, notice shall be hung on the front door of the property in question of such a door exists, or a written notice shall be sent to the listed property owner, alerting the said owner that the property will be moved by the city if within 48 hours of the time of the notice being mailed and property in question has not properly mowed. Mowing by the city. We struck the first section. If the property owner shall fail to comply herewithin, the weed commissioner shall cause the property to be mowed, and the report of the cost therefore in writing to the city clerk in the manner provided within Wisconsin State Statute 66.0517. Such charge shall be spread on the tax roll as a special tax to be collected in the same manner as other taxes, unless such lands are exempt from taxation. If exemption from taxation, then the charge shall be collected as any other claim by the city. A fee established by the city shall be charged for each mowing by the city under this section.
Chris?
Yeah.
2 times first in the 3rd paragraph, and then again in number 2, the word moving and moved is used instead of mowing and mowed. So that needs to be cleaned up.
Thank you.
Before the next reading.
Gerald?
Yeah, I was going to note that too. Well, first I was going to wait and see if you noticed when you read it. Apparently not.
I was wondering what they were moving, but I was reading it anyway. I'm going to keep going. There's another one I got to read.
At the end of paragraph 1, next to the last line, I would suggest putting a comma after back. You read it nicely, but I read it wrong first.
Okay.
Back and side and then yard. Somehow it didn't fit for me, but I think if you put a comma there, that would be clearer.
Okay. And Tom? No, okay. There'll be no more English majors allowed on council. Anyway, thank you. I'm just joking. I appreciate the attention.
But I
to
would make
detail.
the comment that if you catch those things when they're first sent out the packet, it really would be nice to have dealt with those before being in the council.
Actually, I like reading them that way.
So
Joke.
when you do get your packets on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, whatever we come up with, call me. Then I can correct them beforehand. I have to admit that I was getting pretty bug-eyed by the time I finished these Friday afternoon. I was kind of knocking these out.
One of the issues with moving things forward fast is there will be little errors. And so, yes, having attention to detail and eyes of the council, I appreciate, even though I jest. Thank you. Next, consider the first reading of ordinance 2020-06, creation of 4.03.02, parentheses 2, parentheses bullying and harassment. This has been a long time coming there, Andrew.
I will make a motion to have the first reading of an ordinance 2020-6.
Anderson, second.
It was Anderson with the second. Any further discussion? Tom?
Me and Andrew have had lots of discussions over this ordinance before I even got on council. He knows exactly where I stand on this issue and all that. And I was reading through here, and I'm really appreciative that the word perceived is nowhere to be found in here. That was a really big issue of mine with this ordinance. But I just want us, if we're going to be moving forward with this, I just want the whole council to be very weary of First Amendment rights and not treading on anything that could be taken as bullying and it's actually impeding on people's rights. Obviously, we shouldn't have any bullying. There should be an ordinance against bullying and all that. I just want us as a council to tread carefully with this one.
Yeah. Governing is really hard when it gets to the idea of what right stops or proceeds into infringement on another right. And I believe we kind of have a council that's really going to be good at adjusting through that. Andrew?
Tom, you already know or whatever, but the first ordinance that came out was not
right.
This is what it was supposed to be like, and second, it was supposed to be or is another option for the school district. You know, if they got the same kid causing issues, that's where this was leaning to. So that's, yeah.
I'm gonna ask Tom to do a favor, and if we vote yes on this, I'm gonna have you read it, just because I'm about done. So, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Go ahead, Tom.
City of Rhinelander ordinance number 2020-6, creation of ordinance number 4.03.02, bullying and harassment. Whereas the City Council of the City of Rhinelander has identified a concern with individuals harassing other individuals by conduct which is likely to create an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment and which serves no legitimate purpose. And whereas the City Council of Rhinelander reserve the right to modify and amend their existing ordinances. And whereas the current municipal harassment ordinances do not anticipate the need for enforcement anti-bullying standards. And whereas the City Council of Rhinelander has determined that it is in the best interest of the residents of the City of Rhinelander to create its own ordinance for the safety of individuals who are susceptible to intimidation, hostile, or offensive behavior for no legitimate purpose. Now therefore, the City Council does hereby create ordinance number 4.03.022 to read as follows. Bullying and harassment. A, definitions. As used in this section, the following terms shall have the following meanings unless the context clearly indicates that a different meaning is intended. 1, bullying, a form of harassment defined as an intentional course of conduct which is reasonably likely to intimidate, emotionally abuse, slander, threaten, or intimidate another person and which serves no legitimate purpose. Course of conduct, a pattern of conduct composed of a series of acts over a period of time, however short, evidencing a continuity of purpose. Harassment, any conduct, whether verbal, physical, written, or by means of any mode of communications, which A, is prohibited by 947.01, 947.012, 947.0125, or 947.013 Wisconsin stats. Or B, is any intentional course of conduct which is likely to create an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment and which serves no legitimate purpose. B, prohibition. It shall be unlawful for any person to engage in any bullying or harassment of a person or induce another person to engage in such bullying harassment. C, retaliation. Prohibited, no person shall retaliate against any person who reports any conduct which is prohibited by this section. D, constitutionally protected activity. This section shall not be construed to apply to any constitutionally protected activity or speech. E, parental responsibility. It shall be unlawful for any custodial parent or guardian of any unemancipated person under 18 years of age to allow or permit such person to violate the provisions of subsection B above. The fact that prior to the present offense, a parent, guardian, or custodian was informed in writing by a law enforcement officer of a separate violation of subsection B by the same minor occurring within 90 days prior to the present offense shall constitute a rebutable presumption that such parent, guardian, or custodian allowed or permitted the present violation. F, penalties. Any person who shall violate any provision of this section shall be subject to a penalty as provided in number 4.03.10, which shall add a violation of this section as a Class C forfeiture.
Thank you.
You gave me the long one.
Gerald,
You know, it's not easy to notice
I'll
some,
have you speak a little closer to the mic.
it's not easy to notice some of the awkward spots until you hear it read.
Yep.
But at the end of the first whereas, we've got intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. That sounds good to me. But then when we get down to the fourth one at the end, we've changed it now slightly, and it sounds more awkward. Susceptible to intimidation, hostile, or offensive behavior. Maybe intimidating would be better to stay with the same format as the other one.
Yeah, one is the act and the other one is the receiver of the act. So that's why it's worded a little different. But Dan,
Well,
It's just a matter of putting the Oxford comma in. That's all it is.
Okay.
So it's just after the word hostile, there should be a comma in paragraphs 1, paragraph 4, paragraph A, 3, B. And I think that's the last one.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I'm in
English
favor-
major.
I'm in
Yeah.
favor of,
Were you really? Oh my goodness, sorry. I didn't mean to offend you before. That was meant to
I've
be a
been
joke.
married to 2 English majors, but it didn't do me any good. I knew more grammar than they did. But I guess I still think that changing that to intimidating, whether it's behavior or environment, doesn't matter. It's intimidation. Okay, if you want it, intimidation is a noun. The hostile and offensive are adjectives. They ought to be the same.
Agreed.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I agree. Tom?
So after reading through this, now, once before silently, but now out loud and all that, I actually see where Andrew was, coming from, that this is what he wanted as opposed to that original, what I consider catastrophe of motion. I can get behind this. I think it's well put, and I think it spells out a lot of things, and I feel comfortable with it not impeding on anybody's rights.
Yeah. What I thoroughly enjoy is the first parts are the fact that we definitely give the whereas we are allowed to amend things. So we're not failed to not try. We can bring it forth and correct it and get it down, and I appreciate that. All right. We voted, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right. Public hearing. Ordinance 2020-01, amending the zoning code for the city of Rhinelander for 630 South Keenan Street, RH 945, from R2, two-family residential district, to B1 community shopping district. This is some housekeeping. It was before COVID. It was read the first time through, and then kind of just dropped off the face for a little bit, and now we're bringing it back for the second. Actually, the second reading was done too, and now we're bringing it back for the public hearing. Public had this to write in, so I'm going to say this out loud, but once again, it's a curiosity, and it's more a parliamentary procedure. Anybody want to speak on this? Anybody in the public would like to speak on this? This is your second notice. And for a third time, if anybody'd like to speak on this. All right, the public hearing is closed on it. Consent agenda. Tom approached me, said due to the pieces of this being a large chunk of cash, that he would like to take these separately, and then also be able to have Mark or anybody else speak on them. Is that correct,
Mark
Tom?
is here, so we
Yeah.
can.
So we are going to take them separately right from the get-go, so they are not necessarily consent agenda. They're going to be moved on as new business.
Do you need a
approve Steve-
motion on that?
What's that?
Do you need a motion on that? No. No.
No, because we didn't take a motion to accept it as consent agenda. It pretty much just makes it automatically move to introduction, new business, or unfinished business, one or the other. So A, approve Stevens Street pay request, number 10, in the amount of $1,893,091.34. Mark, you're up. Not working?
While we're waiting on that, I will make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Item A.
And I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And this is where Mark will speak.
Tom Kelly was
this-
second.
I'm sorry, David.
Do you have a question before he speaks? No. Okay.
I
catch that,
was
Val?
letting her know that Tom Kelly was the second because he was soft.
Gotcha.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. Sorry.
This pay request 10 is for work completed through May 22nd of this year. This is, the bulk of this work is on Phase 2 or Work Area 2. That's from Dwight up to the bypass. Not all the pipe is on here, but what's going on today and the end of this week is all the pipe is going to be done all the way to the bypass at this point. There is some work that's completed on Work Area 1, which is last year's work. That's a lot of the concrete work that was held over from last year. You'll see some sidewalk that was completed on this portion. You'll see that on the pay request, and that's included on this as well. For the work completed, we're holding 5% retainage on this. What is requested with retainage pulled out is $1,893,000. Let me start that over. $1,893,91.34 is the requested amount, and we would recommend that. I would also like to throw in Pueblo Drive. We had a discussion on that last council meeting. Things were looking a little grim for the contractor getting in and starting on that project. As it turns out, with a lot of work from the contractor and staff and a lot of people involved in it, they have the sanitary sewer in today. They'll be starting on the water main, and they should have that project wrap up the pipe by next week, and there will be no additional mobilization fee or no cost from WPS, so it worked out really well in everybody's favor.
Stressful 2 weeks on the WPS side of things, but we were able to work through it, and not always do we get to talk about a cost savings, so I think we can pat ourselves on the back for that. Because a lot of times we're talking about new expenses, and so I think that was a good win for everybody that was involved.
The other thing too, Mark, if you'd like to comment on, one of the reasons that these came forward is because we're ahead of schedule. Is that correct? That so we get to pay off the bills quicker too?
Yes, yeah.
Excellent.
Which is, I don't know if that's an advantage for you, but yeah. If you want to pay them off quicker, they're
I
there for
suppose
you.
I should think about that. We'll hold on to it. So
But
vote no on this, and we're
yeah.
just going to hold it for about a month? Just
But
kidding.
The project is ahead of schedule, and there's a completion date of October 2nd. We're looking, knock on wood, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but all the pipe is in the ground. All we have to do is build road now. So we're anticipating having everything done along with the bike path, all the concrete work, hopefully by the end of July.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, wait a
please,
minute, roll
sir.
call. Sorry. Motion and second.
We already had a motion and a second.
No.
Roll call.
I was answering her. I'm used to getting questioned.
Mikulowski.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Barnett.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
Motion carries. B, approve Wabash area pay application number 6 in the amount of $119,860.37. I'll take a motion.
I will make a motion to approve Wabash Area Pay Application Number 6 in the amount of $119,860.37.
Larson, second.
Larson was with the second. Any further discussion? Or Mark, you have the...
So this is the Wabash area project. This is Wabash, Prospect, and Itasca. This project was, all the pipe work was done last week, or last summer, to substantial completion, meaning all the curb and gutter, majority of the restoration. And the binder course of asphalt was completed last year. This year, contractor came in, raised manhole structures, cleaned everything out, did a bunch of punch list work, and worked on, put in the final lift of asphalt. The work is done 100% to date. We're still holding retainage on this, 2.5% retainage. This takes us, again, through May 22nd. We're holding that retainage if there are any odds and ends that come up, because we wrap this up fairly quickly. We're going to hold that retainage until we get final approval on it. But all quantities are up to date. And I'll go through a couple of change orders when we get to them as well, but you'll see some additional change orders on here as well. But the requested amount for this pay request is $119,860.37, and we would recommend payment in that amount.
Any questions? Val, please call roll.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rossing?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Barnett?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Holt?
Aye.
Mikulowski?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. C, approve Wabash change order number 4 in the amount of $14,110.79. I'll accept the motion.
I'll move to approve. Holt, second.
It was Tom Kelly with the motion and Holt with the second. Any discussion? Mark?
These are just odds and ends items from last year. We had some additional tree removal at the corner of Prospect and Arbutus that was done. Also on Prospect on the west side, west of Wabash. There is, some of you may recall this, there was on Arbutus, there was some failing sanitary sewer. The contractor did those patches on that sanitary. There are asphalt patches to take care of. That patch is on here, and this is mainly asphalt, is what you're seeing on here. And some shaping of the base course in preparation of that asphalt pavement. We have a hydrant extension. Those are used when the hydrant goes in but is sitting too low. The reason this hydrant extension was needed is we tied into the water main on Ocala, and that water main was deeper than expected, so the hydrant went in, and we had to add that extension on there. And then some concrete steps here as well. A lot of this is just finalizing this stuff. We knew it was all hanging out there. We just need to deal with it on the last pay request, so that's what you're seeing here.
It was within budget?
Yes.
This project?
Yes.
Excellent.
And this change order is reflected on the pay request that you just approved.
Yeah. Any other questions? Val, please call roll.
Rossing?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Barnett?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Holt?
Aye.
Mikulowski?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. D, approve Wabash area change order number 5 in the amount of $63,657.49.
I'll make a motion to approve Wabash area change order number 5 in the amount of $63,657.49.
Could I ask a question?
Yep.
It appears to be minus 63,000, so this is a reduction?
It's a reduction.
Reduction.
This is a cleaning up of the books.
Just to clarify.
Yep, it was, and Mark explained it during the department meeting. I can let him explain it again if you'd like.
Yeah, because this is a unit price job. Say we have 100 units, 100 tons of asphalt, you end up putting in 90 tons of asphalt. All this does at the very end is balance out those quantities. to reflect the contract price being 90 tons, not the anticipated 100 tons. So what you'll see on this, and this is to answer your question, Mayor, if we came in under budget, over budget, you'll see on the pay request, the first sheet, line number 1 has the original budget contract amount of $1,236,943 and change. With this change order, just balancing out those quantities, even with the additional change orders, additional work, it balances out that contract, the final contract amount, to $1,215,294 and change. So there's a savings on this contract. We're about 25 grand under budget, somewhere in there.
I asked the question more or less for the explanation.
Sure.
Knew that was there, but as we pull off the fact that it was $5 million, people want to understand, are we spending beyond or not? And that, I know that it was in project, but this just allows our constituents to hear it also. I appreciate it. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I don't think we have a second.
Oh, we don't, I didn't, yeah, sorry.
Larson, second.
Thank you. Now we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Val, please call roll.
May I ask who was the motion, the first?
Mikulowski.
Okay, and second was Larson? Thank you, just a moment. Okay, Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Aye.
Anderson, Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. E, approve bills and claims in the amount of $2,823,271.33. This was passed around for your physical signatures and also part.
I'll make a motion to approve bills and claims in the amount of $2,823,271.33.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Val, please call.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Introduction to new business. Consider extending the existing agreement with By Request Digital Media for live video streaming. Zach, I'll have you speak on this.
Yeah, in your packets is the previous agreement that was extended to the city, and that expired May 30th, I believe, and basically we're carrying forward. Recommendation would be to extend this for a period determined by you folks here on the council until a successor agreement would be negotiated.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I was just going to say, I thought we had them through the end of June. Is that?
Misworded, misspoke.
The agreement says June 1st. I said
June
May
1st.
30th, so apologies. Unless the council took action.
I think at a
differently.
previous meeting, it was mentioned, or it was thought that the contract had it through the end of June.
Yeah, that's what I thought we voted on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when I got the packet, I was confused too about the June 1st date and how he was here today. If it ended June 1st.
Thank you. Yeah, it was clarified, either was it during discussion and or otherwise, that the contract signed was through June 1st. So we're just looking to extend it for a period of time at this point. Tom?
Well, I've got to say that I've gotten a lot of feedback from my constituents, and they are extremely happy with this being added to the way City Council is viewed. And I got to say, going back and watching some of the council meetings, just to kind of view how the constituents are viewing everything, I got to say Jim is doing an excellent job, far beyond what I thought any kind of live stream of a city council could actually be. And I think you're doing a great job. So I think that it would be foolish to not continue this.
Jim, just for clarification, the numbers were like 157, 200, 138 last time, 137, something like that, of viewers watching it. So that's quite the extension as far as open government is concerned. That being the case, as we discussed, extending the existing agreement or whatever, just so that we understand that we could put it into our full plan. That type of thing can happen at the work session when we're doing it. So today, though, we're looking for guidance just to, one, make sure we at least make it through June, if nothing else, and then to enter the contract, or whatever the council sees fit as far as that goes. But discussion would be needed as far as that goes in our work sessions also. But
I move that we continue the contract at least through July 31st.
okay. There's a motion on the floor
Mikulowski, second.
and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Tom?
Can we, we'll continue it now until July 1st, but in our
31st.
planning
31st
sessions,
was the motion.
we should discuss keeping it even after the COVID-19 issue is done, and we still have, because I'm getting nothing but positive
Correct.
remarks, and I think we just should keep it.
That's good. One reason we put it on the working session is
Yeah,
because
put it on.
just even different things like mics and stuff like that will be discussed because it's a mess. And Zach has some ideas with that also as far as even session things. Gerald?
Under analytics, besides the number of people watching, is there any other information we can get?
Jim? I'll have you speaking to a mic. Sorry. How about that?
Come out from behind
the
the camera.
producer himself gets yelled at for the production.
I just can't turn the camera over here. I can give you where they're watching from, different platforms that they're watching on, if they've been viewed during the meeting or after the meeting as well too. So it's just basic analytics. So
Can I ask Jim a question?
Yep.
Can you tell me, is there a way on the website to put in a comments section so people can comment directly on the website?
we could. Do you want to do that?
The other question is, once again, this is kind of the work session.
Well, now that we've passed the anti-harassment, anti-bullying requirements.
One of the things that me and Zach talked about a little bit too, and I think I talked with Chris in the very beginning, was also putting this on Facebook, which currently right now I don't think you guys have a Facebook page for the city, right? So if we get that set up, then we can actually stream on Facebook and on the website as well too, and then that's where people, if they want to comment.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop this at this point because it's just the extension.
Yeah.
Partially, the reason being is, one, we're looking to extend. We know that's the case. The mapping out of what could be or anything else is for another agenda item. We just really had to house clean this to make sure Wendy is not into paying bills that we don't have a contract for, and I appreciate that. She's very diligent at that, which is good. I mean, it's good for us, so that's what it is. It is spending money, so I'm going to have Val call roll if there's no further discussion.
Larson?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Holt?
Aye.
Mikulowski?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rossing?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Barnett?
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. Jim will see you through July at least. B, discussion designating reserves from the Fund 444 for parks purposes to include the construction of a maintenance building and refurbishing Pioneer Park bathroom. Actually, I'll take a motion if anybody wants to make that motion. What's that?
Did you want to have Wendy provide any background on that?
Yeah, Wendy, would you like to step up to the mic and give background of what Fund 444 is and what its purpose and where it came from? She's like, no, but thanks.
So we have a Fund 444 that was set up for the bikes, PEDs, bikes and paths basically advisory committee. And in 2018, we had borrowed $135,000 to be the city's portion of a 50% grant match with the DNR. And we had applied for the DNR grant twice and were denied. So we had $135,000 put into Fund 444, and it's sitting there not being used. Part of the stipulation with borrowing money is you have the intent of spending it down within 3 years. So I do think that this is a good opportunity for you to take a look at this, as it was designated for the Chamber Trail, which is part of the parks, if you want to redesignate it so that the Parks Department can still use it, but for some other purpose within the park system. We, last year, we purchased the mini excavator to help with making trails. So we're down to $113,000. But Jeremy is probably going to speak to you more about what he'd like to use that $113,000. But we do need to spend it down. It is sitting there waiting for us to use it.
Gerald.
I don't hear an amount for the actual construction, so I'm assuming this is just to basically reallocate all of that money to
Yeah, we have Jeremy here who
Construction.
can speak on it. But before we do that, and I'll take a motion, but the motion can even be, it's just discussion. So right now, we don't have to have a motion. If we were to vote on something, we would like a motion before we discuss what we are voting on. So if it's remaining a discussion item at this time, which I don't have a problem with, we can then have that discussion. But if a motion is to be desired, go ahead and make that motion first. All right, looks like it'll be a discussion item. Jeremy, can I have you stand up there? Thank you, Wendy.
So yes, it's exactly what Gerald said. It's just the $113,600 plus some change to be allocated for the parks to do a building project and to redo a bathroom at Pioneer Park. Because we have not yet got designs or state drawings or anything like that, I didn't want to spend money I didn't have before, put the cart before the horse type deal. So I just wanted to see if council would approve the money getting changed over to the parks like this for this type of use. So that's what the discussion's about.
Yeah, Tom?
So I'm probably going to have Wendy come back up to, unless Jeremy knows the answer. The funds can't be used for anything else other than, that's what it's allocated for, correct?
As of, right now, they could be used for, trail grants or trails, something like that. But from my experience and kind of the reason why I stopped trying to get these grants, the last time I tried to get a grant, we'd had the full $135,000, and they were saying, could you get another $100,000? I mean, it's crazy, and that was to do about a mile of trail.
Yeah.
So the numbers are outrageous right now, and some of that is needed. And paved trails is a good thing around town and things like that, but we were starting to move the process to go out towards Heel Creek, which is more machine-built trails, and with the help from Rasta and trail builders like that, we can do things much cheaper and involve the whole community. So I was taking this money away from doing some trail stuff and hoping to improve some park things that desperately need improvement.
Is that the refurbishment of the Pioneer Park bathroom, is that the what you had discussions with the pickleball court people
Yeah,
about?
I wanted to make sure, because we are, if this would go through, to use some of that money for that, aesthetically, looking at Pioneer Park, the first thing when you drive down Kemp Street and have to stop at stop and go lights, tourists see a horrible 3 shades of green building just sitting in front of them. So we were going to basically cut the wings off of that building and keep the newer handicap bathroom. And it is a single bathroom, so I wanted to talk to Maureen O'Mealy and the pickleball group and make sure that that was okay with them. And It was, yeah, we'd love bigger bathrooms, but right now the cost of things, that's not a reality at this point. Maybe in the future it can be, and we can always add on. But to have a decent, nice-looking facility, that outweighed the way the building looks at this point. And we discussed, if they're going to have pickleball tournaments and stuff, either way, we'd need to bring in porta potties, and that group agreed that they would do that too. So that's a bonus for us.
And this is also what people see when they drive by,
Yeah,
correct?
and right now there's a green sheet of plywood, so it doesn't look quite that bad, but
Right.
that, on the
So-
first page of that handout is the damage. That's what the building does look like, and there's even some plumbing damage right inside, as that's where the water turn on and off is for the bathrooms in that building.
I saw the accident, which was kind of exciting, and ran over there and saw this right away. One of the things that, and Jeremy and I, we've discussed this too, is this is the current way we do decision-making or whatever. We find that we allow our department heads to do a great job going out, looking for the resources to move things forward. That being the case, the reason we put it as discussion is after the listening, or after our work sessions, and work sessions might become more normal, where quarterly or at least biannually something that we do, so we can handle the 6-month issues and the year issues and the 5-year issues. So he understood today was going to be discussion, because it actually sets up the perfect platform for a park issue when it comes to that work session, as we say, this, and this. This is what it looks like 5 years. This is what we need to, or think we need to do now. Where does this sit on the priority list? And how do we set policy that allows him to move forward with the stuff in the order that the council sees fit? So that it actually works out nicely just to be a discussion item, so that we get to work through a live problem, or something very, very tangible on that first day.
Real quickly, because Wendy mentioned the bikes and peds, I just want to make sure this is a different project. We're talking trails, where that 113,000 came from, not the bikes and peds project. That's something different, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay.
Wendy, when you borrow, is this correct? When you borrow for a specific purpose, you need to put it into that purpose. So basically, that's what Jeremy's asking, is us to reconsider that borrowing.
Right, but I just wanted to find out for sure what the borrowing was.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two types. This is just very general. There's two types of borrowings that you can do. You can do borrowing by bond resolution, where we did that in 2016, where we did a borrowing and we set it by resolution that a certain dollar amount was going to be assigned to a certain project. Then there's another type of borrowing is called borrowing notes, promissory notes. And that is what we did in 2018, where we brought a list to council to sort of designate the dollar amounts to certain projects. But the way the legal borrowing happened, it was done by notes. So council has the opportunity to say, we're going to redesignate this amount of money. So it's not locked in, where actually you could say, we were thinking about giving this to parks, but now we have this street project that we need to move it that way. You do have that capability, even though I don't think that would be a very fair thing to do. But with the 2018 borrowing, it was notes, and you can redesignate it.
I just wanted to make sure that no money's being pulled away from the bikes and peds project, the bike path project.
This 113,000 does not have anything to do with the bikes and peds designation from the Pratt money, if that's what you were thinking of.
I just want to make sure that we're not
Yes,
pulling
that
any
is
money
totally
from that.
separate. With the designation of the non-motorized transportation within the Pratt Fund, it's going to stay in the Pratt Fund, in Fund 227, and there's a line that says it's a reserve for the non-motorized transportation. And that's just another accounting way of managing it. It's going to stay within that fund, and then we'll move it to make the expenses. So the 113 is specifically from the 2018 borrowing.
Gerald.
I'm a little confused as to, we say we have this fund, but it's borrowed money. How does it get paid back?
This one is paid back by our debt levy. It's being paid back right now, even though it's not
Yeah.
spent.
We've probably paid on it for, well,
Yeah,
we-
we're already
more
paying
than
on it.
already paid on it, at least for 4
Yep.
years. So, no further questions? All right, we're moving on. Thank you, Wendy. Consider applying for a community development investment grant to support the redevelopment of 123 West Rive Street. This is Jim. Go ahead and stand up, and I'll ask you.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks. I'll get close enough to the mic. So I'm Jim Rosenberg. I'm the Regional Economic Development Director from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. And I serve a 7-county region, Oneida, Vilas, Langlade, Forest, Florence, Oconto, and Marinette. But I live here in Rhinelander, so I'm a little bit parochial about that, and I would like to see some good things happen here. And I've also spent quite a bit of time in city government like you. I did 7 terms on the Wausau City Council, so I've felt your pain. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. What's before you and what we're asking you to consider, and by we, I mean me and also the developer of this potential project, is for the city of Rhinelander to apply for a community development investment grant. And I know some of you weren't here last year when I talked about this with regard to another building, the old Mills Trading Post building, 25 South Brown. We looked at that as a possibility. We're still hoping for that project to come through at some point, but there have been various complications along the way, COVID being one of them, but others dealing with the developer and some of his other projects and whatever. And since we can chew bubble gum and walk down the street at the same time, I've got another proposal for you to look at, and if we have a chance to revisit the old Mel's building, that's fine. That'll happen in the future. You won't be prohibited from considering that at that time. Or recently the Peggy's Emporium building was purchased, and that's a building that is in a strategic location downtown and needs a ton of help. So that might be one that we revisit. But this one that I want to talk about tonight is a little bit smaller project, but still I think a critical one. So it's at 123, 125 Reeves Street, and that is right behind the Tilly's building. So if you remember when Rhinelander was the home of House of Spirits, and it was regularly known as one of the ugliest buildings in downtown Rhinelander, that building got redone by a developer and made into Tilly's, and he did quite a bit of investing in it. Fortunately for you, it's the same developer that would like to work on that building immediately behind. So the proposal is for about $358 million in renovation to that building. There's going to be stucco, going to be an upstairs apartment. Yes?
1,000.
1,000. Did I say million? Million, 1,000, no. You know, actually, I think we're missing a few million from that. This would have brought all of that back and then some.
You know what, you could do this. Pull it off, man.
Thanks. I don't even think we could fit enough water towers on that lot to get 358 million. Anyway, 358,000, and so that would involve an upstairs apartment, which is what was also done with the Tilly's building, and it's a very nice apartment. I've toured it, and I think maybe you've seen some photos of that. And then ground level commercial, which is similar to what was done at Tilly's as well. And so you've got a developer with a successful track record that it's already shown you that they do first-class work and all of that. The proposal is for the city to apply for a $75,000 community development investment grant, which I'll guarantee you won't redesignate afterwards because it'll be with WEDC. And then also for the city, I'd like for you to consider for the city to make a $25,000 contribution from the tax increment district. And really, you know, when we talk about projects like this particular developer has been in the restaurant business down in Madison for many, many years. and he understands very well that to build something in Rhinelander isn't going to give you much less in construction costs and things like that, but what it will give you is a lot less in the rental receipts from that ground level retail or even the apartment. And so in order to make those numbers work and to make it worthwhile, it helps for people like WEDC, like the city with a tax increment district, to come in and buy that initial investment down a little bit and make it possible to do that. And what the city gets in exchange for that is then in a higher tax base. Unfortunately, not 358 million, but it's a start. So WEDC is limited to 25% of the total project costs in order to participate. And then, so our 75,000, and that's what I'm proposing, and nothing's guaranteed in this world, even WEDC, but I think we have a pretty good chance. So that 75,000 will keep us under our 25% contribution. And the city's contribution at 25,000 will be recovered in a reasonable period of time. And I think that's really important. I've seen some really abusive tax increment deals in my day, and this isn't one of them. And the other thing is that we want to make sure we pay back by 2030, which is the end of that tax increment district. And so it's important to keep those numbers in line. And so, you know, if we end up with, say, 400,000 in taxable value, we'll be able to recover that 25,000 within that 10-year period, certainly. I know that that tax increment district is underwater, but this doesn't make that into a bigger problem. And in fact, it helps to solve it by adding value to that tax increment district. So in the long run, you're going to be better off. Things like this tend to be catalytic. And actually, we've got some pretty good synergy going on down in that area right now. The old Hardware Hank building is being redone by Paul White, who also did the 151. And so there's some good things happening around there. And that's the chance to really lift all boats with a rising tide, too. So that's kind of what I'm putting out there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Gerald. I've heard that front apartment is being listed on Airbnb. Is that the intention for this other apartment also? And does he have a use for the first floor business part of it?
Well, I'm not sure that he has a tenant lined up for that ground level retail right now. We would want that at some point because we want him to be successful and we want the building to be valuable. But the specific use of it is probably not of great concern to the city as long as a fair value can be established. And one of the things that we've talked about is to accomplish that through a development agreement. And so by that agreement, there'll be a fixed minimum value for that building. So that even if it didn't get a tenant, and I think he will, but it would ensure the city's cash flow from that project. I don't know about the Airbnb versus permanent. Airbnb is kind of a tough business right now. Apartments, not so much. And in speaking with the developer, he's had some discussions with larger businesses, and we talked about this with respect to the Mel's building too. Businesses that bring in executives for a period of time and are looking for something a little bit more different than a hotel room, and we really don't have a lot of great accommodations at certain levels for that type of extended stay anyway. And so I think that might be part of it, but not so much as an Airbnb type of a thing, which is turning into a disaster for some people if you're reading some of the articles around the country. I don't know if that'll be true for a long time, but it's certainly true now.
Eileen?
Did you say 123 and 125? So is this the entire parcel behind Tilly's all the way back?
Right, it's a brick building, and the reason I say 123 and 125 is because I got information that said 125. I took a picture of the building and it said 123, and so I can say It's either 123, 125, or both. It's a brick building, though. It's all one building. And did you
But
get a
it's-
picture of that?
It's one building, but isn't there a bar behind there too?
Yeah, it's before that.
So
Is it
so
where
this
the hair
parcel
salon
would be
was?
the building there's a bar there, isn't there?
Well, further down.
Further down.
Yeah, the
Further.
bar isn't part of,
Isn't part of that building?
no, what it was used for, I think, was to hold stock for House of Spirits. I think that
right.
was the use of the building.
So my question is,
There
if
was a
the bar,
tattoo shop in there.
my question is, I mean, you've set a fairly high, based on the building the Tilly's building, its current value based on its original value. You've set a fairly high or a similar proposed value for this new building. I'm wondering, was it taken into consideration the fact that there's a bar right next to it too, which could devalue that property?
I guess I'm not an assessor, but,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's probably more likely that the bar property is becoming more valuable as you get development marching up to it. And it's, you know, it's pure speculation on my part, but whatever. When you do the development agreement, there'll be a discussion about value. I don't know where it'll end up, you know. It'll be more than 200,000 and it'll probably be less than $500,000, but I don't know what that number will be. It impacts, though, on your payback as a city. So, yeah,
Ryan?
we'll see.
Ryan?
What did you say that the building is valued at right now?
I don't know. I honestly do not know. I know that the proposal calls for more than $350,000 worth of investment to be put into it.
Right, I'm just
And there
trying-
was a base value, you know, it was worth something prior to that
Right,
work.
yeah, I'm just
But
trying to
cost
get a-
is not value, I agree.
Just trying to get a difference on what it's taxed, you know, what we're getting on tax now compared to after putting 300,000+ into it.
Wow, I don't know. I can't believe it's a real high assessment, and that's one of the cautions that the developer has, is that he wants to make sure he's not putting too much into a building that he would never be able to sell for that price when he's done. And these grants, of course, help mitigate that risk.
I can address in the supporting documentation from Friday that I emailed you all, that laid it out. The properties assessment of the Tilly's building, see, it's all one parcel. That's the interesting thing, I think, on this. It is not two separate parcels, and I suspected that it would. So it might be a little bit more challenging for us to set that base value. But the properties assessment prior to his purchase was $48,000. In 2020, or as of January 1st this year, is assessed at $306,900. So it had a $258,000 net gain of value in the TID. And so, as Jim had said, the developer plans to invest $358,000 into this portion of the project, which they're anticipating at least $46,000 of exterior improvements. So, thinking about how the city's support may be allocated to the project.
Any other questions? I'd accept the motion to consider applying for the, or to
Yeah,
direct-
I would make a motion to apply for the WEDC grant for this.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second.
How big a
Discussion.
grant?
What's that?
How big a grant? 75,000 or 100,000?
Well, that was the grant issue. It was whether or not we contributed on the TID end of it.
Yeah.
So
Well-
that would be the question before you also, because it's not just applying for that.
So does the motion need to be a commitment of $25,000 from the city to go towards this?
I'd recommend you do that after you talk about it in closed. I think we've got it on
Understand.
13A for the TID portion of it, since it's sort of negotiating. And just take them separately.
So we have a motion and a second to apply for the grant before $25,000, which we can discuss in close. Any further discussion? Val, please call roll.
Anderson,
Aye.
Holt,
Aye.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Barnett,
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Consideration of denial of claim from the Brahms Plumbing and Heating.
I'm going to recuse myself from discussion on this.
Okay. Did you hear that, Val? Ryan Rossing recused himself from discussion on this. No discussion? I'll take a motion. No motion?
I'll move to deny the claim.
We have a motion to deny the claim. Do I have a second?
Barnett, second.
And there's a second. Discussion. Gerald?
I guess I'm not clear on why the city should be liable for anything here.
Yeah.
That's,
Go ahead. He's asking why the city would be liable? Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like poor parking to me mostly.
Again, the whole process is that unless the city or you as the council foresee a clear case of liability, you really should deny the claim because it's a procedure. They can't do anything unless we deny the claim, or if we admit the claim, of course, then they can just collect money from us, or from the city. But if you deny the claim, then they can take whatever subsequent action, which includes we submit the claim to our insurance company if they continue to pursue it. And if our insurance company decides, they do. But I would have to agree with you as legal opinion, this should be denied because there's really no liability here.
So we're not self-insured on this kind of thing, right?
Well, that's an interesting question. We're never self-insured, but we do have a fairly large deductible.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. E, consider denial of claim. Janet Orvis.
What's this one about?
What's that?
What's this one about?
Yeah, it's really not Janet, by the way. It's William Eads, E-A-D-E-S, address of 512 West Prospect, Rhinelander. Thank you. I swore I talked loud enough. Okay. So what this is that on or about Easter Sunday, there was a blockage in the line serving the house's sewer system, and the blockage caused a backup in the property. And if anyone would like to see the pictures of their basement, we have those available. They suffered damage in the claimed amount of $1,688.56. I did investigate this with the city staff who were present and who went out there and who did look at this, and it was determined that the blockage was not caused by defective city equipment in any sense, and that therefore I make the recommendation that we deny the claim.
City staff is in-house if you had questions for them, but.
I do.
You do? Okay. Tom?
Can you determine what the blockage was?
No, not really. We did, I was out there with one of my staff members on Easter Sunday, and we did pull back some disposable wipes.
Mm-hmm. And that was on the, in the city part or the resident part?
When you're pulling back, you can you could pull them right out of the customer's lateral, or you can pull it. Nevertheless, our manhole upstream was not holding. However, we did jet and pull back some wipes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to decline, deny claim.
Thank you.
Rothstein, second.
That was Holt. Rossi with the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Consider changing the frequency of PFAS testing. This item was brought to me by our wonderful wastewater department, but at the same time, it completely made sense. We were being upfront as we can and getting the information as quickly to the thing. But the problem, as the city has it, was terminated when we shut down the wells. That being the case, to continually test to make sure other wells weren't an issue is legitimate, and that it's not hitting our distribution places at times is legitimate. But at this point, testing further, especially monthly, seems a tad bit excessive. And if you go back and look at the numbers, you can traipse them back, and they're not changing that much. So if it went to bi-monthly or quarterly or whatever the case that the council would see fit, it's a council decision to make at this point. And it's kind of funny because it's somewhat an administrative role to decide how to approach, but at the same time, when we're spending money on something that no longer has an issue, to have council support to say, this is no longer in our city water at this point. We will test. How frequently is somewhat up to you. Jim, would you like to weigh in at all on how frequently you think is necessary? He gave you a little bit of heads up on this in the department.
What we noticed as these contaminants were showing up at wells 7 and 8, it was a slow process. This just didn't happen overnight. So my opinion would be bi-monthly at this point would be fine. And I think in the future, we could look into bumping that out even farther.
Eileen.
I'd like to make a motion that we move to every other month testing for a period of 1 year, since this is something that is in the public's mind right now. I wouldn't want to go to any less than that for at least a year. And if numbers remain the same, then we bump it out to quarterly.
Larson, second.
Okay, there's a motion, second. And Gerald, you had your hand up?
As I understood you before, you test at the wells and you also test in the distribution system?
Yes. Once we took wells 7 and 8 offline, I think we tested in the distribution system probably 2 months following, and we were coming up with very, very low numbers in the distribution system. So knowing we were no longer contributing, we stopped the monthly distribution, but continued monthly well sampling at that point.
Tom?
I don't know if this would be like a friendly amendment. I'm still trying to learn all the terms.
You'd like to make a-
But I think that, I agree with Eileen here. But if there is an uptick during one of those testings, do you think it would be prudent to go back to the frequency we're doing it now if the numbers start going up again?
Yeah, but basically what we're saying is the source of, whatever came from has been, at this point, eliminated from our wells, our services, and therefore the distribution, because it doesn't come
Right.
from our well, it's not going to go out to distribution.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to add in there that if there is an uptick in the PFAS levels, that we go back to testing more frequently.
I'll second that.
That was Rossi with the second. Okay. So, yeah, there's discussion on that. Otherwise, we will vote on that. All those in favor of the friendly amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. That motion carries, and we'll go back to the original motion. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Discuss with Police Chief It's part of the night where my lips get thick. Police Chief Gauthier, training and crowd control, and other current issues raised by the demonstrations and police response. This was brought to us by Gerald.
Yeah, I just thought with all that's going on in the news and problems in Minneapolis and other police departments, we ought to know, and the public ought to know how our police department here approaches these issues.
Excellent.
Sure, I would be glad to talk about this issue. I did call Alderperson earlier today, and it ended up being a longer conversation because I can get passionate about that. I'm passionate about serving our community. I'll talk about the training aspect first. 30 years ago when I started, actually 29 years ago when I was in the academy, when I started, training was, I was hired by the State Patrol. We went through an 800-hour training academy. At the time, the basic recruit academy in the state was 400 hours. So agency specific like Madison, Dane County, Milwaukee County, DNR, Wisconsin State Patrol have their own academies. They are typically longer because they cover more things specific to their agencies because of the size. The hours of training for police officers has increased over the years from 400 back then to 520, and then just recently within the last 3 years it's gone up to 720 hours. So every officer coming in that we hire gets training during their 720 hours. They get 8 hours of training on ethics, which talks about doing the right thing, and so they get 4 hours in the first phase, which kind of deals with themselves, and then 4 hours on the last phase before they graduate, and those 4 hours are dealing with agency-specific ethical concerns. They also get 8 hours of cultural competence, where they talk about you coming into the profession, you have your own biases, and you need to recognize them, and how do you control that when you're now a law enforcement officer serving and protecting the community, where your personal beliefs might be a challenge to what you're doing, and that has to be put aside because you're hired to commit and serve the community. So the training takes care of that. We also, specifically now at the Rhinelander Police Department, we train every year in use of force. Every year we are required by Wisconsin Department of Justice Training and Standards to complete a handgun qualification course to show that we're proficient using our firearm. But we also include in that every year, every employee, every office department goes through a series of written tests. And those tests are based upon our use of force policy that adheres to the training and standards policy, adheres to Wisconsin state law, adheres to the U.S. Constitution. So every year we get training on use of force. In light of the recent events, I've recently just passed out an article to my employees and one of our policies. The article had to talk about de-escalation. That is an issue that, in an area that law enforcement has really started to look at in the last couple of years. We developed specific training for crisis intervention for people who are in crisis, whether it's mental health or medical emergency, other things. 30 years ago, law enforcement, you were asked to do a lot of things, but you weren't given the training of. To be a mental health expert, you have to go to college, and you have to do a lot of training to get training to that level to become a mental health expert. Law enforcement officers spent most of their training being a law enforcement officer, but not a healthcare professional, not a mental health expert, not a drug, to help with people that have drug abuse issues. Now, as law enforcement, we recognize that we need to give more training in that area because we're the first responder. We're the first on the scene. We can make it better, we can make it worse. And so training is critical to that. The other part of that was I gave them a copy of our policy on bias-based policing. The Rhinelander Police Department has a policy that prohibits racial decision-making and their enforcement of laws and in doing services. We couldn't provide a service for one business due to that owner's, whether it's race, their sexual orientation, their social and economical, their gender, and then we can't do it for somebody else because we don't like that. So we have policies that dictate that you can't do that. Specifically, what you see in Minneapolis is you see a situation where for years I've taught ethics around the state of Wisconsin. At technical colleges, I've been hired by police departments, sheriff's departments, and the big issue that any agency has to have with is when you hire an employee, we do very thorough backgrounds. We scrutinize the applicants. You bring them into your department and you put them with a field training officer. Your field training officer is the most critical person in that new officer's career because they role model what behavior is appropriate within your agency. So you have to have the best of the best officers as field training officers. Next important is your first line supervisors. As a chief, as other chiefs, as other captains, I can't be 24/7. I can't be at every call. And that's why you hire and you promote people, like promote somebody to a sergeant who is there on the scene supervising, making sure that the policies are being followed, that good best practices are being done. So those are two critical things, and those were some of the breakdowns that you saw in that situation. That's something that anytime use of force is used in the city of Rhinelander, the officers have to report that. We already report use of force. There's chokeholds. That's not a trained technique in Wisconsin. One of the handouts that I gave you tonight, and I gave one to Val for to be part of the record, was a document put out by the chiefs of police and the Badger sheriffs. They combine to help educate the community on how advanced Wisconsin law enforcement is. For just a simple fact, in 2014, Wisconsin law enforcement and Wisconsin, the state of Wisconsin was the first one in the country to mandate that if there's a death due to a law enforcement officer, whether that's in a vehicle accident or it's firearm or in custody death, it has to be investigated by 2 investigators, and the lead investigator can't work for that agency. So again, taking the bias out of those investigations to make it more fair. So there's many other things that Wisconsin, I'm very proud of how Wisconsin law enforcement operates. But I also will tell you this. There's something I heard a long time ago, and I think it's very appropriate. Law enforcement, the best thing about law enforcement is we hire human beings. The worst thing about law enforcement is we hire human beings. You can't take the element of a human being out of the equation, no matter what the profession is. Whether it's law enforcement, whether it's a doctor, whether it's a pastor, whether it's a teacher, you have the human element. We're susceptible to character flaws. And that's where supervision and accountability is critical. When those things happen, that something is taken care of and there's some action that's taken forward. Is there any question regarding the specific training before I address the techniques?
I'm just wondering if your department has had trauma-informed care training.
Yes, some of us have. There's also a lot of them have had crisis intervention training. The other part of that, of the agenda item was talking about how to respond to crowd control and things, and that specifically, I will adhere to part of the state statute that says that anything dealing with crime prevention is more appropriate to be discussed in closed session. To come in here and tell you what our tactics would be like if you're going to play poker and you show the person you're playing poker with your hand. For officer safety purposes, I can't talk in public about some of the tactics that we would use. That certainly, if you're interested in, you could agendize that for our next council meeting in closed session, and we can talk about crime prevention and things that we do. But as the chief, we take use of force very seriously. When I review those, I look at what was the situation. You look at who the officer was. Is this multiple complaints that this officer has? What shift does this work? Does this officer work night shift where you're dealing with more people who are intoxicated? We just dealt with a person who was extremely intoxicated on June 1st, who spent the entire time, he was operating while intoxicated, spent the whole time telling my employee he was going to kill him. He was going to hunt down their family and kill them. So there is violence in the world. But when we have to use force, I review that. Could there be things that we could do differently? Because all the tools that I'm given, that I wear on my duty belt, the most important tool that we have as a law enforcement officer is our ability to communicate. And that is by far the most important tool that we have. It's a tool we can never not use. And we would love to end every situation verbally with compliance. Unfortunately, in this given world, that's not always possible.
Thank you. Tom.
I just want to say that I, as a person, have full and complete confidence in our local police department. I think you guys do a fantastic job. The fact that the protest went off without a hitch is a testament to not only the protesters, but having you guys around there to make sure everything went smoothly. I know that you personally went around to a lot of the businesses when there was some talk of some stuff might happen, might not happen and stuff, and addressing each individual business owners. And I think that says a lot about how much our police department cares about our community. And the fact that my 9-year-old daughter wants to be a Rhinelander Police Department police officer is a testament to not only you, but your entire department. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I'm gonna add quickly, one of the things with building a team, and it's something that Lloyd takes serious, is that character and integrity issue and culture, workforce culture, that is something that, so one, I've seen it in action working at the hospital, people that are in crisis, and the patience and the communication I've witnessed delivering. I've received a lot of insults since I've sat in this chair, but the stuff that they have to listen to and yet still have a polite, kind, generous look on their face in dealing with them is amazing, and it's to be appreciated. We thank you for that. Gerald?
Oh, just to add what Tom said, I've been very impressed with what the chief's been telling us about the attitudes and practices within the department, and I think the people of Rhinelander can have a lot of confidence in the people we've got.
Yeah, thank you.
As I said, the most important element is that we hire human beings, because you want that empathy and crisis with people. You want that human touch. You know, we're not robots, and sometimes we make mistakes, and that's when accountability comes into place, when supervision comes into place, and that's the standard at the police department is high, and the employees are working hard in this community to serve every day. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will look to go to closed session, if necessary, to convene into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C, or LC, excuse me. Is that one? Yeah, okay. Considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. And E, deliberating over negotiating or purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting another specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. A, consider the parameters for negotiating a development agreement with the redevelopment in TID 8. And B, discussion of consultant compensation under the extension agreement. The council will return to open session and may act upon these items.
I'll make a motion to go into closed.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second. Is this the point? I call roll. Yeah. Val, call roll.
Holt?
Aye.
Mikulowski?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Rossing?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Barnett?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Anderson?
Aye.
Motion carries. We will take a 3-minute break and then come back for closed. Turn off your mics. Chris, what the? He comes in
Yeah,
all
we're gonna
fired
have to
up.
really get adjusted back when there's 50 people in
Ron?
the room again.
All right, we'll return to open session, where we'll, Part A, consider parameters for negotiating development agreement for the redevelopment of TID number 8. No action was taken or will be taken.
No.
There will be? I'm sorry. Is there a motion?
There is a motion.
I would like to I would make a motion that the Rhinelander City Council does resolve that it supports the grant of $25,000 to assist the development of the 123 West Rive Street property based upon the completion of an acceptable developer's agreement.
Holt, second.
Okay.
I'll write it down and give it to you.
Hold second. Since this has to do with money, any further discussion? Gerald?
Should it say something like up to 25,000 or? Are we?
No, there's a motion on the floor. If you want to try to amend it, that's perfectly fine, but I'll accept the motion as it is.
The only thing I'd say, I'd use the 25 because that's what he needs to use
Yeah.
to get the 75. And we'll have the developers agreement, Gerald, if that doesn't work,
Yeah, I mean, my
There's still work
motion-
to be done. It's not like it's just given away at this, at this point. Are you okay with that explanation? Okay.
Pretty close.
Val, please call the roll.
Michalowski.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Barnett.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. B, the discussion of the consultant compensation under the extension agreement. The council will return to open session and may act on this item. I'll accept the motion.
I would like to make a motion to pay the consultant $2,200 per week through June 30th.
Barnett, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
2020.
2020.
Correct.
Just want to make that.
June 30th, 2020.
Oh, I thought you were talking the price tag again.
No.
No.
People, what?
Sorry, I didn't finish my date.
Yeah, she wanted to make it clear.
Gotcha.
You're right.
So, go ahead and state your motion again for Val.
Yes. I would like to make a motion to pay the consultant $2,200 per week through June 30th, 2020.
Barnett, second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Val, please call roll.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rossing.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Barnett.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
Michalowski.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion carries. Unfinished business, we're to discussion of existing council practices and procedures adopted by the common council. We've gone through this and
Nothing at this time, sir.
thank you. Future agenda items, I'm going to list them, and then if you have ones you want to add on, that is appropriate. Consider a maintenance project on Lincoln Oneida Street intersection. This is a work product in motion. It wasn't able to be brought to committee, or to council this time, but is definitely something we're working on. Update and presentation of the Green Gulf Partners. This is the scope of it was a request from before, but it still needs some more investigation. June 16th, 17th work sessions. I think we've covered what the idea there is to formulate in your mind how to make policy about decisions prior so that administration and people can move forward applicably in the decisions coming to you fit into that scope. Update on park masterpieces from Hodag and Pioneer. This should come to council real soon. Consideration of an ordinance pertaining to the disposal of assets. This also should come to council real soon. So, Eileen.
I have another future agenda item, please.
Wait till she's ready to write.
I would like to revisit the restrictions outlined in the ordinance regarding fencing and fencing height in Rhinelander, based on the fact that there have been 3 claims within the last year where we had to do a variance, so I think we should just re-examine the language of that ordinance.
Tom?
I'd like to request a future agenda item to have a discussion about security cameras on Brown Street at the 2 intersections.
I want to second that.
It's just a future.
I know, but I want to second that.
You want to
I
ask
wanted
for it
to-
again? And then Ryan Rossi asked for it.
I'm going to third it too.
Yeah, okay.
I'll third it for you.
Tom?
Anything else?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Gerald?
I just wanted to clarify what that was, discussion about security cameras on Brown Street at intersections?
At the 2 intersection, I believe it's Rives and, is it Rives and Brown?
Yes.
And Davenport and Brown.
Thank you.
Gerald?
I just wanted to say, I'm not suggesting any items for next time because I'm not going to be here.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
scheduled for hip surgery that same day, so I won't even be trying to call in to vote or anything.
How
Stay
big is
healthy.
your hospital room?
You'll be on some good pain meds, huh?
Andrew?
You'll be on some
I
good
will
pain
let you
meds.
know about the 22nd. I may not be here either
Okay.
because I have shoulder surgery, so.
All right. We're the patchwork crew. All right, we are at the end of our agenda. If there is nothing else to be added for a future agenda item, we are adjourned.
Oh, sure.
You need 2 hips?
You mean that?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.